Have you ever felt completely stuck? Like you're facing the exact same problem for the 5th time, hitting the same emotional wall, having the same argument, or fighting the same internal battle. And in those moments, what's the story you tell yourself? I'm back at square one. I haven't made any progress. I keep making the same mistakes. What if I told you that story is fundamentally wrong? What if being stuck isn't what's happening at all? What if revisiting old patterns isn't failure, but actually a signature of profound evolution that most people miss? What if you're not going in circles, you're spiraling forward? We've been taught to see progress as a straight line. Start here, go there, achieve this, overcome that, never look back. It's the story of progress we've been fed our entire lives, and it's why we feel like failures when we face familiar challenges again. But what if that model is fundamentally flawed? What if human growth, consciousness evolution, emotional development, all of it, actually moves in spirals, not lines? Think about it. When you revisit an old fear, an old pattern, an old struggle, are you really the same person who faced it before? Do you bring the same awareness, the same tools, the same perspective? Of course not. You've changed, you've grown, you've evolved. You're not circling back, you're spiraling upward, revisiting similar territory from a higher vantage point. And once you understand this pattern, once you see through the illusion of the line and recognize the reality of the spiral, everything changes. Let's break down why the linear progress model fails us so deeply. From childhood, we're programmed to believe in linear achievement. Get the grade, win the game, climb the ladder. Each step forward, never backward. It's why we beat ourselves up when we fall into old habits. It's why we feel shame when we have to relearn lessons. It's why we panic when life seems to bring us back to familiar challenges. But the universe doesn't operate in straight lines. Look around you. Galaxies spiral, DNA spirals, water spirals, seasons spiral, even your own thoughts spiral. The spiral is nature's perfect pattern for sustainable growth. Let me show you 3 places where you've been spiraling all along, even if you didn't recognize it. First, relationships. Have you ever found yourself having what feels like the same fight with a partner, family member, or friend? You think, here we go again, nothing's changed. But look closer. Each time you revisit that conflict, you bring new awareness. Maybe last time you were purely reactive. This time you notice your triggers sooner. Next time you might catch yourself before reacting at all. That's not a circle. That's a spiral. Second, career development. Think about your work life. You master one level of skill only to face a new challenge that makes you feel like a beginner again. You think, I should be beyond this by now. But that feeling of starting over is actually evolution in disguise. Each new level requires you to revisit fundamental questions from a higher perspective. The apprentice and the master both face uncertainty, just at different elevations of the spiral. Third, personal growth. Notice how your personal growth journey keeps bringing you back to core wounds, core questions, core identities. Why am I still dealing with this insecurity? Why haven't I figured this out yet? Because evolution isn't about escaping your patterns, it's about witnessing them from higher ground. The questions don't change. Your capacity to answer them does. That's the spiral at work. Now, I want you to try something. Think about something in your life where you feel stuck. A recurring challenge, a persistent feeling, a situation that makes you think, I should be past this by now. Got it? Hold that thought. Instead of seeing it as a closed circle, the same problem over and over, try seeing it as a point on a spiral. You're not back where you started. You're above where you started, looking down at familiar territory. Ask yourself, What do I understand now that I didn't understand before? How am I responding differently this time, even in subtle ways? What new resources, awareness, or wisdom do I bring to this familiar challenge? Every time you cycle through a pattern with new awareness, you're not going in circles, you're ascending the spiral. Let me share something powerful. The moments when you feel most stuck are often the exact moments before your biggest breakthroughs. Why? Because feeling stuck is often just the recognition that your current model of reality doesn't work anymore. That recognition is the first step in spiral evolution. The spiral narrows before it expands, pressure before release, confusion before clarity. That feeling of, I can't do this anymore, it's not failure. It's your consciousness preparing to shift to a higher turn of the spiral. What does it actually mean to live from spiral awareness instead of linear thinking? It changes everything about how you navigate challenges. First, it transforms how you talk to yourself. Linear thinking says, I'm back at square one. I've made no progress. Spiral thinking says, I'm revisiting familiar territory from higher ground. What new perspective can I gain this time? Linear thinking says, why am I still dealing with this? Spiral thinking says, what's trying to evolve through this recurring pattern? Second, it changes how you measure growth. In linear thinking, you measure progress by how far you've moved away from challenges. In spiral thinking, you measure growth by how differently you respond to similar challenges. Not have I eliminated this feeling, but how has my relationship to this feeling evolved? Not have I escaped this pattern, but what new awareness do I bring to this pattern? Third, it shifts how you handle setbacks. Linear thinking interprets setbacks as failures that send you backward. Spiral thinking recognizes that setbacks are often necessary compressions that precede expansion. Every master fails their way to mastery, not in a random walk, but in an ascending spiral where each failure builds the foundation for the next level of skill. Fourth, it revolutionizes how you see recurring challenges. When the same core challenge appears at a higher level, linear thinking says, I should be done with this by now. Spiral thinking says, this core challenge is my teacher. Each time we meet, both of us have evolved. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone with a fear of public speaking. In linear growth, they would face the fear once, overcome it, and never deal with it again. But that's not how growth works, is it? Instead, they face small speaking challenges, develop some confidence, then face bigger ones. Each new level reactivates the core fear, but they're not the same person facing it. They bring new tools, new perspective, new capacity each time. That's the spiral. Or consider someone healing from trauma. They don't process it once and move on in a straight line. They revisit it in layers, each time with greater capacity to integrate what happened. Each revisiting isn't regression, it's evolution. Once you start seeing life through spiral awareness, you begin noticing something extraordinary. The spiral pattern exists at every level of your experience. Your day spirals from waking to sleeping. Your year spirals through seasons. Your relationships spiral through phases of connection and growth. Your consciousness spirals through states of awareness. Even as we're having this conversation, your understanding isn't moving in a straight line. It's spiraling, circling back to core insights with deepening resonance each time. And here's where it gets truly fascinating. Your life contains many spirals, all moving at different rates. Some complete their cycle in days. Others take years. Some spiral across a lifetime. When you're aware of these multiple spirals, you realize that feeling stuck is often just a misinterpretation of where you are in various spiral cycles. What feels like stagnation in one area might actually be a necessary compression phase before a major expansion in another. What feels like repeating the past might actually be your consciousness creating the perfect conditions for a breakthrough. This awareness, what I call Spiral OS in Consciogen, doesn't just change how you see your challenges, it changes how you see your entire life. Not as a problem to be fixed, not as a straight line from A to B, but as a magnificent spiral of consciousness continuously evolving even when, especially when, it revisits familiar territory. So the next time you feel stuck, the next time you face a familiar challenge, emotion, or pattern, remember, you're not stuck. You're spiraling. You're not failing. You're evolving. You're not going in circles. You're ascending. This simple shift in perception changes everything. It transforms frustration into curiosity. It turns shame into awareness. It converts the feeling of being trapped into the recognition that you're exactly where you need to be on your unique spiral of growth. The question isn't, why am I still here? The question is, what's different about how I'm experiencing this now? That's the question that accelerates your evolution. That's the awareness that turns stuckness into spiraling. There's so much more to discover about how these spirals operate in your life, how they interconnect, how they accelerate, how they create the conditions for profound transformation. But for now, just notice. Notice where you've been applying linear thinking to spiral realities. Notice how your apparent failures might actually be perfect points on your ascending spiral. You're not stuck, you're spiraling forward, and that changes everything.